YouTube channel near you.
Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome. Hello, Denise, Roger Blair, Little Twisted. Are you having a little twisted day there? Penny Van. Do not laugh. We got this under control. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Denise, Penny Van, Roger, and everybody. And Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, Grizzly. How you doing today?
Doing good. Trying to set up a mobile studio, and I'm getting ready to finish that. Fiber just got installed. However, we got some good news, ladies and gentlemen. I spoke to some people over across the 7 seas, and we are now broadcasting live on Simply Spooky Network. So thank you, Vivian, and everybody that's involved in that to make this happen for our channel. So you are going to see a lot of new things coming this way, Tim. Looks like we're going to be adding probably 3 or 4 more new shows.
That's great. Very great. Thankful.
So what we got on today, Tim?
Well, we got Jason B. Miller coming on today, family man, father, and retired military veteran, and he has had encounters and very knowledgeable person.
Well, all right. Well, let's bring him in. Jason, come on down. Welcome. How you doing there, kind sir?
Doing great. How about you both?
Oh,
Hey,
wonderful.
Jason.
Thanks for joining us today on the show, and introduce yourself and tell us a little about your history.
Well, my name is Jason Brad Miller. I'm originally from Pasco, Washington. I joined the military in 1988 as a United States Army combat medic, retired, and my family and I decided to find a place to raise our family, and we picked a little tiny small town in northeast Washington called Colville. It's in the northeast corner next to the Idaho Panhandle and just south of the Canadian border. And as being an outdoorsman all my life, I passed all this experiences on to my children and my wife. We are an outdoors family. You name it, we've done it. We've gone there. We just love the outdoors. And one day, this was August the 31st of 2013, it was about 99, 100 degrees out, and we had nothing to do. So we just kind of brainstormed, and we decided to head up to this trail on the Colville National Forest that we have walked numerous times. And it's not a trail for the novice or flatlanders. It's pretty decent terrain heading up. And once you get to the top, there is this lookout, this spot where you can just sit and overlook this canyon. And the canyon is called Hoodoo Canyon. It's in Ferry County, Washington. So we pack up the rig, get everybody ready to go, bring water. Didn't really bring any snacks with us because it was just a quick outing in the afternoon. And we arrive at the trailhead, and we're ready to go. We've walked this so many times. We know what to bring, what not to bring. And we decided, well, we don't need any water, nor should we even bring phones. And in 2013, we didn't have really the smartphones we have now. Basically, the old generic flip phones. Wasn't really worth bringing them for any reason. Number one, there's no cell service. Number two, we've been up there enough and taken enough pictures that really no need. So we begin our hike, and the first leg of the hike crosses over this creek called Dead Man Creek. And it's myself, my wife, my daughter, my son, and our dog. So we're all single file working up this trail. Now, it's a Forest Service trail, and it's maintained. Many people hike it, especially to get to this view. So my son is in the lead, and he's
What happened? No, he's timing out here. Just give him a second. There you go.
Uh-oh. Okay, so my son was in the lead and just full of energy. So he's just leapfrogging up ahead of us. And then myself, my wife, my daughter, and our dog. Now, I'm very hard of hearing in my left ear from the military. And my son gets up to the spot and he stops and he points across the canyon that parallels us as we're heading up. And he says, Dad, there's some loud noises coming across over that way. And
give him a second, ladies and gentlemen. So everything's fine on our end.
okay, it must be my Wi-Fi. Sorry about that.
No, not a problem,
So
sir.
I apologize. So my son stops and points out this noise. And I just tell him, hey, it's probably a moose or possibly free-range cattle just making some noise in this area. So he bounces up ahead and he stops again a few minutes later. It says, Dad, it's coming across again, straight across from us. Now, again, I just say, don't worry about it. Moose. The only thing in my mind was a moose because it's the only thing that popped in my head. Now, this continued and continued and continued halfway up the trail. So as we're working our way up, something to our right is also following us up, but there's no trail over there. It's just thick, dense forest. Now, again, I'm kind of just putting this off to a moose. It wouldn't be a bear making that much noise or cat. But I didn't pay no mind to it. So, anywho, we get to the spot where the lookout's at, and my son knows exactly where he can take off to beat us there. He wants to be the first guy there, and
Right.
he took off, and we're lagging behind. One important fact that I need to really stress is this is prime huckleberry season. Now, in our area of the state, we have huckleberries, and I call them forest candy. When they pop, like the size of little grapes, you can't stop eating them. They're addictive. So we're just working our way up and eating, munching, talking, paying attention to this noise. So my son bolts off ahead. And as we catch up to the lookout, he's not there. Gone. Now, right at the lookout on this bench, it's 110 feet straight vertical down. It's a straight vertical wall. Behind us, it's about 30 feet wall going up. So it makes this bench where we could just sit and overlook this canyon. My heart sunk. I thought that he was just so full of energy that he flew off the edge. And I'm yelling for him. I'm screaming for him. My wife catches up. We're kind of in a panic. We're looking down. Anywho, he pops up from behind us on the wall behind us, looking down and saying, hey, I'm up here. And I'm like, dude, get down here. Get your butt down here. Come on. What are you doing? And he kind of shimmies his way down, gets down with us, and not scolding him, of course, wouldn't do that. But I'm like, what made you climb up there? And he looked me straight in the eye and he goes, Dad, there was a guy looking down at me, this scruffy looking dude. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude, whatever. You just wanted to climb up the wall and show off, like a young little teenage boy would do. And he says, no, Dad, there was a guy looking down. And again, hindsight's 2020, but I'm like, whatever. So we spend the rest of our time just sitting back, enjoying the view. And again, we've walked this trail so many times, we have it down to the time where we need to be heading back. And after about a half an hour of family time, smoking and joking, well, not smoking and joking, but, you know, just having a good time, I told everybody, let's go, boogie back. And so we start heading back, and it's a single file trail. It's almost impossible to walk side by side. So my dog is a German Shepherd. He's in the lead. Then my son, my wife, then my daughter, and I'm bringing up the rear. So we're walking single file, slowly working our way back. And on this particular spot on the trail, my wife, my son, and our dog, they have to take a 90-degree right-hand turn. Then they have to make another 90-degree left-hand turn as they're working down. And then at that point, they'll be out of sight of my daughter and I. Now, I know where they're going to go to post up in this dark cedar grove where it's real cool out, and there's a spring where you can drink water out of it. It's just ice cold. So I know where they're going to go post up. So my daughter's in front of me, and I'm behind her. And all of a sudden, the only way I can describe this is my spidey senses were just instantly on high alert. That feeling of not danger, but predatory eyes. So I stopped, and I wanted to take a good look at my surroundings, because something wasn't feeling right. Now, my daughter is about 10 feet in front of me, and she stops as I stop, but she's looking ahead. I look over to my left, just over my left shoulder, and out of the corner of my eye, I see movement, just the slightest little bit of movement. So I quarter myself a little bit further to the left, and right at the 25-foot mark in front of this juvenile Sasquatch is where we were posted up. So when I turned and quartered, it had its back up against a spruce tree, pressing itself against the tree, with the boughs of the limbs just above its head. And I couldn't tell if it was sitting on its knees, cross-legged, or on its butt, because it had its abdominal area to the top of its head exposed, but below it was in the center of a very thick patch of huckleberries. Now, when I turned and looked and saw this, I turned back to my daughter, and I didn't say this in a loud tone, but I got her attention, and I says, Haley, look right there. And she turns around and she looks at me. So she's not looking over my left shoulder, which would be over her right. And she goes, Dad, I don't want any more huckleberries. I'm sick of them. Because she thought I was pointing out another big patch of huckleberries. And I go, no, look right there. Look right there. And she looks over my shoulder. Now she's 13. And she goes, holy bleeping bleep. It's a Sasquatch. I go, I know. Shh, calm down. So I go, come here. come here, get a little closer to me. Now, this encounter right here is, the only way I can describe this is peaceful. So as my daughter's walking closer to me, she gets to me and I tell her, let's get a little closer. So we kind of turn. I had to turn around. She's already facing me. And we walked about 5 feet closer to this juvenile Sasquatch. Now, when I say juvenile, I mean not an infant, not a full-grown, like, teenage man or being. I'm talking about grade school, that youthful, vibrant look that a young child has with no care in the world. And it's sitting in this position where if we had stopped exactly parallel to it, not past it, I could have reached out with my left arm and probably touched it. It was that close to the trail as we walked by single file. I still can't explain how my dog didn't alert on it. My son and my wife, they're just yapping and working their way down. I just happened to have sensed something. And wow, was I right. So as I turned around, and now I'm facing it, my daughter is facing it. And this little guy, he's sitting there one at a time, grasping a huckleberry, one at a time, with his thumb and his index finger. So the dexterity that this little guy had, same as our hands. So he would pick one at a time, and he would purse his lips and pull that huckleberry in. And the smile on his face with each one was pure joy, pure delight. At times, it would grab one and reach out and offer it to us. I didn't reach out for it, but as it would realize that we weren't going to take it, it would then take it and eat it again. Now, we're having this three-way stare down. My daughter's looking at it. I'm looking at it. My daughter's looking at me. I'm looking at her. Back and forth. Now, I am a retired U.S. Army combat medic, retired EMT, paramedic. I have a long background in the medical field. The whole time I'm standing there, I am taking mental photographs of this young creature's anatomy. I am looking at every part of its body that I could observe, from its navel to the top of its hair, where it had this perfect part, the eyelashes, the trap muscles, the biceps. Every part of the anatomy that I could observe, I was taking mental notes. But the whole time we're sitting there watching this little guy, he's just in the most delightful, happy manner that I could ever imagine. I can't describe it in words other than it was looking at us as if we were entertainment, and it was eating popcorn and enjoying every moment. If you could pull up one of the photographs that I sent you, I'd like to describe in detail. Okay, so you can see how it is eating one of these huckleberries one at a time and looking at us. Now, this drawing was done in collaboration with Sibylla Irwin and my daughter. Now, my daughter did it separately. I did it separately. And then Sibylla combined the two. And this is about as 99% perfect as it could get without an actual real photograph. What you'll see is the hair on its body is not thick. It's not full yet. I could see through the follicles. I could see the skin underneath. You can see the youthful appearance, especially on its face. There's no wrinkles, no weathered marks. The fingernails were not claws. They were the normal cuticles that we have on our hands. But the most striking part of this encounter was how clean this young guy was. The lack of debris, the lack of just a messy look. The best way I can put it, and I've always stated this, is as if the mom had just groomed it and it was out doing whatever it was doing, because it was absolutely pristine, no smell. So we're at the 5-minute mark, and I'm watching my watch, and about the 7-minute mark, I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable. I knew we've been here too long. So there's another photograph of what we agreed on that would be age progressed. And I just found this image off the internet as a comparison, which, in my opinion, highlights exactly how it would look. They're right there. So the carrying over the mixed anatomy from this youth to this aged progressed one, in my opinion, is spot on as far as what myself and my daughter would believe that it would look like as an adult. So to get back to the encounter, we decide we've been here too long. So I told my daughter, start moving away slowly. And as we worked our way, maybe 4 or 5 steps away, I took one last look over my left shoulder. It had already stood up and it was just entering the thick timber. And that's when I caught a glimpse of its genitalia. And that's where I can state unequivocally that this was a male juvenile Sasquatch that had posted up in a spot where I think it didn't think it was going to get caught observing us. Well, it did get caught, but the reactions that it had was not what I expected. So right at the time my daughter and I start to work our way away, I hear my wife, my son, and our dog coming back. Now I know that if they get too close, my dog might see it or sense it, and we might have a problem. So I told my daughter to stop. I told my wife with hand gestures, I said, stop, grab the dog and wait. We got down, we met up, and my wife's like, what are you guys doing? What's taking you so long? And I'm like, you have no idea. You just, my daughter and I are just like in this state of euphoria. It's the best way to put it. And of course, my wife believes me. And now I'm looking at my son saying, dude, you were right the whole time. I'm sorry for not believing you, man.
Right.
But I described it to him and he says, Dad, that's not what I saw. What I saw looked like an old, just grizzled old man. So whatever he saw, and I know what my daughter and I saw, that was 2 in one area. So we start working our way back down to get to the rig, and the sun was just starting to set behind the Kettle Fall range. Excuse me. And that's right at the point in time when the coyotes start doing the roll call, and they are just yipping, just going off. And about a mile west of where we were posted up on the trail came this return, not a scream, not a howl, but just this loud vocal that shut them coyotes up instantly. I mean, like a light switch, off. So now I'm thinking, now there's 3 in this area, because the one that my daughter and I just left, the one my son witnessed, and this return vocal, that was too far away, in my opinion, for one of those to have traveled that distance. So now I'm believing there's 3 in this area. And I'd like to piggyback on what I mentioned earlier about phones. I don't think this would have occurred or happened if we had had a phone on us. That's just my hypothesis. Probably things would have changed completely different. I was armed, but my sidearm was covered by my t-shirt. Never felt any threats, never felt scared. So we get back down to the truck. We get home, and we all agree as a group that we want to go back. And we didn't have a real reason to go back other than we were so excited about this encounter that we just all wanted to go back camping. We weren't going back looking for anything in particular. We weren't expecting to go back to find one. We just didn't have anything to do at this point in time of summer. So we just decided, let's go camping. So now it's July 1st, and I'm sorry, I got the dates wrong. It was July 31st. Now it's August 1st. So August 1st, we head up there in the afternoon, and we set up camp, take our time. It's pretty hot out. And I decide that I want to walk back up the trail to this spot.
And here he comes back. All right, Jason.
Yep. Then I forgot where we left off at.
You was just going back up the trail.
Yep.
Camp. Okay. So we were camping. I wanted to go back up to the trail, work my way back up, and I wanted to go back to the spot where this young male was sitting. Now, at this point in time, I was never a believer or a skeptic. I was on the fence. Now I'm a believer. I mean, this encounter just spun me. It just 180 degrees, changed my life. But I wanted to go back, and I just wanted to check out the area. And I wanted to go solo. But everybody wanted to go, which is, hey, no problem. Let's go. And we work our way back up to the spot. And sure enough, right where it was sitting, right at the base of this tree, whether it had defecated prior, during, or just as it stood up, was the freshest fecal sample. I mean, perfect. And when I say fresh, I mean, I can tell the difference between old scat and new scat.
Right.
So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, this has to be collected. And so in my backpack that I always carry, I carry a trauma kit. I carry all sorts of medical equipment. And so first thing I did was I opened up all my gear, made a complete sterile environment, best as possible. I had 3 sterile vials. One was contaminated, so I only ended up using 2. Donned on sterile surgical gloves, and I started to dissect pieces and put them in these sterile vials. At the same time, I then took the remaining sample and put it in just a Ziploc bag. So now I have 2 sterile samples and then the full sample that was remaining. Now I go home later on after we're done camping, and I'll jump to that later. But we get back down to the camp spot, and we're sitting there enjoying the evening. It's one of those beautiful, beautiful nights where you can see every star in the sky. It's a full moon, and the weather is just cool as the sun sets. We're sitting around the campfire, and our dog loves to get up into a camp chair. I don't know how he does it. He figures out his little technique to get up in there, his big butt up in there, and kind of wiggles away around. And he's just sitting there staring in the coals. And then right around midnight, he looks up with that alert. He jumps out of the camp chair and he takes off just to the edge of the tree line where the trail starts and drops down into this canyon that we have to work our way down as we work our way up. But he's standing in this spot with that aggressive stance, that danger. There's something down there in the dark. Now, my dog has been around every animal in the woods: grizzly, wolves, cougars, you name it. He's been around them all. So I can't figure out at this point in time what he's freaking out on, what he's alerting to. My wife is like, "What's he doing?" I'm like, "Something's down there." And we weren't scared. Nobody was scared, but we were just kind of like, "What's moving by? It'll move by. No worries." Well, he sat there and he just was jacked, just aggressively staring into the darkness, not growling, but focused, laser focused. So I walk up to him, I grab him by his collar, and I'm like, "Come on, dude, come on, back up. It's all right." He ain't having none of that. He's fighting me. Not fighting me in a manner like mean, but he's stuck there. He's like, "Dude, let me do my job." And I'm like, come on, get back. Finally, after a few more tries, he lets go. He surrenders, and he comes back to the campfire. Yeah, we're all sitting around, but he's laying in a position where he's still staring at this one spot. And the best way I can put this is all hell broke loose at that point in time. Now, we were on a flat piece of land, almost just a field. On 3 sides of us, it drops down into these draws, into these deep, dark canyons. So we're on a flat plateau. On the north side of us is the road coming in, and there's nothing behind us but just openness. But in front of us, it drops down into this dark canyon, and again on each side of us are parallel canyons. All I can say is one started crashing, busting branches just throwing a fit, just smashing. Now, there was no yelling, no vocals, nothing thrown at us, just massive amount of destruction of whatever it could grab and make noises. Then in front of us, where my dog was staring, then to our left and to our right, simultaneously. I mean, this was going on constant. So we know now we made a mistake. I believe that we had come into their area where either they had a nursery, they had a large group or clan, whatever people want to label them as, because where we were at was nothing but huckleberries. And these berries don't grow everywhere. They're in selective areas. So I think we walked into their food source, or they were posted up in this area and we just happened to come in the day prior. They let us go, but then by us coming back the next day, I think they were a little upset that we were there, and they let us know. And this continued and continued. It got so intense that my daughter and my kids brought a friend also, that my daughter and their friend went inside the camper. They didn't want to be outside anymore. Finally, my wife goes in the camper too. She's had it. It just getting too, it just didn't let up. So now it's my son and myself. My son is sitting in the camp chair and he's just staring in the coals, wherever our brains go, our primitive brains go back, wherever, when you're sitting there staring at the campfire. I'm a stander. I like to stand. So I'm standing and I'm looking into the coals, and the commotion is still going on, but we're kind of blocked it out. Guys, enough. You know, we got the hint. We're not leaving. We couldn't leave. I mean, we could have gotten our vehicle and left, but we didn't. We just decided, hey, they'll give up, or they're not being too aggressive. But my son is sitting there staring into the coals. And all of a sudden, he stands up out of his camp chair. He turns around and he walks off into the darkness, just out of the illumination of the campfire, just enough where I couldn't see him anymore. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, he's stretching his legs. He's maybe gone to take a leak or something. Our dog, he's still staring in the same direction. But anyways, so my son just walked off into the darkness, and I look at my watch again. I'm a time guy. It's just a habit. And between the 4 and 5 minute mark, he's gone. He hadn't returned. And right at the moment when I'm getting ready to go look for him, he screams my name, not in a harmful manner, but in a manner he was scared out of his gourd. And it was about 105, 110 yards to where he was at, to where he was standing on this ledge, and the canyon dropped straight down. As I get up to him, I grab his left shoulder with my right hand to try to turn him around. But like my dog was doing, he was kind of resisting me a little bit. And I pulled a little harder to get him to turn around and look at me. Finally, I look over his shoulder. Now, this picture right here represents almost perfectly what was staring at my son, except for this big dude was further down the hillside. So we were almost eye to eye looking at each other. But that image right there is a prime example of what my son was almost like in a trance. And there's another image of some glowing red eyes right there. So as I'm holding on to my son's right shoulder and I'm looking over his shoulder, him and I are eye to eye with, this is almost spot on right here. The minute it looked at me, it turned around and it just took off down into the deep, dark timber, busting, crashing, stomping, huffing and puffing, just smashing its way down to the bottom of this ravine. And then gone. But the harassment kept up all night long on all three sides of us. So after it ran down the hill, my son kind of came back a little bit. And I says, come on, dude, let's get back to the campfire. He meandered back a little slow, kind of took his time. And he sat down in the camp chair, went back to staring into the coals. And he just had this blank look on his face. And I asked him, dude, what happened? He has no explanation for it. He goes, I just had an urge to go walk over there. Something just made me walk over there. I says, did you have to go to the bathroom? He says, no. I just had this feeling that I need to get up and go walk over to the trees. And I didn't feel that feeling. It wasn't sent my way. My dog didn't react. But I'll stick to this till the day I'm done on this earth. If I hadn't been able to get to my son by the time he screamed out for me, I truly believe he would have been taken. I really do. I have no explanation for how he was able to get up and move without talking to me. He won't talk to me. He doesn't want to talk about it right now. He's too young. He's 27. He wants to live his life. And I respect that. Maybe one day he'll open up a little bit more. But so we went from the previous day having this encounter with this young, cute little guy to the next night, in my opinion, terror, to the point where I believe my son would have been taken. And thankfully he was able to yell out for me. But that's my initial encounter in a nutshell. And I'm open for any questions or any opinions, anything.
What's very fascinating is that I can picture this going down. And you being military, myself being in law enforcement, Tim knows, beyond a reasonable doubt, I carry pew-pews with enough firepower for a small infantry. Ain't that right, Tim?
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely carry.
So what if, why not, how come nothing was introduced or rounds fired off?
At which point?
Seeing him and this big creature together.
Okay. Going back, thinking about this, the thought never crossed my mind. Now, again, like you just said, I carry a 10 on me everywhere I go. So I'm ready. But I didn't feel the need at this point in time because this wasn't a long extended period of time. This was, I came up to him, grabbed him by the shoulder. I didn't see what he saw initially. It was only until I looked over his shoulder, then we were eye to eye, and then it was gone. So by the time I would have been able to draw, pull on, I would have been firing down into the darkness into blindly. And I would never have done that anyways.
No, especially with your type of training.
Correct. Now, if it had its hands or been in any way, shape, or form trying to remove my son, then it would have been on. But it was just bang, 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 and gone. And that's a great question, but there would have been no time for me to draw and again, put one on target that quick. I'm also 100% against harming them unless you got to defend yourself, life or limb. What's very odd that you bring that up is when my daughter and I are sitting up there, and again, I'm armed, but there was no threat. This was like seeing a child at the park who's lost its parents. You just want to go up. You want to comfort the little child and say, "Hey, it's okay. We'll find your mom and dad." Nothing. It was like that lovingly encounter. So I had no intention of even in my mind pulling a weapon and doing something like that. Now I had up to 7 minutes, no problem. I could have gotten up to it even closer. But again, at that point in time, it was just a beautiful exchange of emotions between three people. And I say people because this was a living, breathing, bipedal not entity, but being.
Right. So for the audio listeners on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google and Apple, Lorna asked you, Jason, do you think the Sasquatch possibly mind spoke to your son?
100%. Absolutely. Without a doubt. My son still has no explanation of why he got up and walked off almost in a robotic form, but he doesn't recall any voices, any sensation. He doesn't recall anything that he can relay other than he just said something made me stand up, turn around, and walk off 110 yards into the darkness. So it was directed to him specifically. So yes, to answer your question, I believe 100% that's what occurred.
Absolutely. Something did occur, and because to not remember or even think about doing things and doing it. Brian Barber is asking, what happened to the fecal matter?
Okay. Well, that's a whole nother can of worms. So I will condense this down. I got home, and the first thing I did after we get home, we put everything away. I go downstairs, and I have an area where I have some medical equipment, and I start laying out in a sterile field again, and I start pulling off hair samples one by one by one, and I'm putting them underneath a microscope, a medical grade microscope. And one, of course, was deer. The second one was deer. The third was deer. And I'm pulling these off one by one, and I'm just discarding them. Then I pull off one that absolutely was nothing like I've seen before. So I'm having this aha moment. Holy guacamole. I've got something that sloughed off its rear end as it had its bowel movement. Some of the hair was pulled off and stuck to the outer casing. So I take that and I put that in a sterile vial. And I'm going through the hairs again, one by one by one. And I find a second one. And I put that in another sterile vial. And then I take the rest of the sample and I put it in my freezer. So now I have 2 hair samples. And I started a Facebook page. I want to say the day after I got home or the day of. Regardless, I posted this encounter and I posted the fact that I had collected a couple hair samples. Well, I want to say a couple months go by and I get a phone call and I didn't recognize the number. So I didn't answer it. I thought it was just a telemarketer or something. Phone call, the phone rings again. I didn't answer it. Third time, I'm thinking, okay, all right, I'll answer it. So I pick up the phone, and it just happened to be Dr. Jeff Meldrum on the other line. And we have this conversation. He basically states, I heard about your encounter. I heard that you believe that you have found what you believe are hair samples of something that you can identify. And I gave him my background, my medical background. And he goes, I want you to send those to me overnight express to this address. I mean, knock it out, get them to me. And I'm thinking, honestly, I'm thinking this is a joke. This is a prank. Couldn't really be him. You know, who am I? Well, I send them to him. I want to say a week later, he calls me back. And he goes, we have something here. We have something that we cannot identify. Now, when he said that, it's like, in my opinion, it's like hitting the lottery. How lucky could I have got at that point in time? And to have this man send me a request to send him these samples. So at the same conversation, he goes, I want to offer you this documentary chance. I want this to be filmed. I want this to be, everything that occurred. Let's get this on film. Now, I'm like, this is just blowing my mind. And of course I consent. So I think some guy with a little, camera is going to come up and do a little hokey dokey, generic filming of it. Oh, no. This company, I won't name the name. But they flew from Toronto, Canada to Las Vegas. Then they drove from Las Vegas all the way to my little town. And this is a professional film crew. This is as legit as they get. And we go up to the spot. We spend a full day filming. And it's on IMDb. It's called The Missing Evidence, season 1, episode 6. And the best way I can describe this is it starts out pretty good. It starts out very well done. And halfway through the show, it ended up being one of those mockery films. They ended up making fun of us.
Wow.
Now, Dr. Meldrum had nothing to do with this other than, see, once once I was filmed and my daughter was filmed and he did his part, we had no control of the editors of the final product. So the company from England, instead of it being one of these shows that you're like, that's good, it ends up being one of those where they made fun of us. Ended up stating towards the end that my daughter and I, and also they filmed a retired sheriff deputy who had another great encounter. They said that all we saw was a walking escaped circus bear and hallucinating. So that was a punch to the gut. I have no hard feelings toward Dr. Meldrum. Him and I, we talk all the time, but man, a rookie. I had no clue. Once you sign your name, they can do whatever they want with your stuff. So the hair samples were not in Dr. Meldrum's database. They were unidentifiable. And then they were sent to NYU University for further DNA testing. Without mentioning the doctor's name who appeared at the end, who really did a number on us. Magically, they came back as white-tailed deer. Magically, somehow. Now, could they have been contaminated from the point where Dr. Meldrum was working on them to the point they got to NYU? I highly doubt that because of his professionalism. But yeah, so at the end, they just said it was white-tailed deer and waste of our time, waste of our. It was embarrassing. I do have my hair samples at the database in Vancouver, British Columbia, at a lab called Hominid Enigma. They're in the database, so I have those on record. But after that, in 2014, that show, not a word, no podcasts. I didn't want to take the chance of being embarrassed anymore. But I continued my work, and the evidence that I've collected over the past decade, we don't have time to get into that respectfully, but I would like to have you pull up one more photograph, and that's the one where I'm laying in a recliner, if we have time.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's see here. And here we go.
All right. So, as I expressed earlier, when out of the blue, Dr. Meldrum called me about these hair samples that I had posted on my brand new Sasquatch page, I got a phone call almost identical to like Dr. Meldrum from the producer of Monster Quest, Doug Hychek. He had heard about my work over the past almost 11 years, and he's putting together part 2, Legend Meets Science part 2. Dr. Meldrum's writing the book, and I am one of a handful of people that were chosen to participate in an experiment for this show. Now, in the show, there's some evidence that I found, which that's separate from this. But I would like to share what happened here with everybody out there. And I would highly encourage people to take advantage of this tool, if possible. So in this photograph, I am in a recliner at Doug Hychek's house in his studio. The lady to the right, her name is Teresa May, and she is a hypnotherapist, I believe is the correct word. So the experiment was, there was 5 of us total, and each one of us at a separate time, privately, was put into this. We weren't hypnotized. It's called regression. So you're in this state of, you're awake, but you're not awake. I could hear everything that she was saying, but I don't recall my responses. So basically what this is that it's a way to put somebody in this state to see if they're telling the truth.
Right.
Basically. Not only that, but to pull out bits and pieces of my daughter's encounter, my son's encounter, that was stored in the back of my hard drive, way back in my head, that doesn't come to the forefront when I recall this encounter. And there was a lot back there that I didn't know was hidden, and that'll be shown in this show. But I just want people to understand that there are certain people out there who are telling the truth. And in this state of consciousness, I went in telling her, jokingly, but seriously, there is no way you're going to zap me. You're not, ain't going to work on me. You're not going to make me walk around clucking like a chicken or, turn me into some person I'm not. No way possible. Well, 96 minutes later, when I woke up, I'm a believer, 100%. And that is one way to vet people's encounters. And so that's going to be highlighted in the upcoming show. And I just want people to understand that not only did it pull out bits and pieces that in my subconscious was stored, it also has helped me with other issues in my life. I can't explain it, but I highly recommend that if there are any military vets out there with severe PTSD, military people, any people with issues that they need to have a little bit of help pulling out stuff that might help them feel better or deal with things in life, that's a tool that I never, ever, ever thought would be part of a toolbox. And it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And I got to watch another guy go under, and I watched how he recalled every event that he encountered exactly as he described. So it's impossible in this state to embellish or make up when you're in this state. And I'm looking forward to that coming out, because that again is adding great weight, tipping the scale ever so slightly in our favor.
Jason, how do people find you and reach out to you and tell you their stories and encounters?
Oh, wow. So I have a Facebook page. It's called Northeast Washington Sasquatch Society. I get lots of people messaging me all the time, and I have built up rapport with people from all across the country, Italy, Germany, Argentina, I love talking to people, listening to their stories, and just bouncing off theories. And that's the best way to get a hold of me. And I encourage anybody and everybody, if you just want to talk shop in a calm, safe environment, I welcome it.
Well, I tell you what do you say, Tim? Mind blowing, isn't it?
Yeah, I appreciate him coming on. Yeah, he has a lot of knowledge, and I believe every word the man's got to say about his encounters and everything else.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jason, for coming on the show. You're always more welcome to come back. It's fascinating to hear you explain your encounters and your opinions. And I'm sorry to hear what actually happened. That would be very devastating. I know exactly what contract and paperwork you're referring to. And it's like, wow, you want that much control and that happens? Absolutely. So it's just, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I was asked to do a documentary too. And I said, well, is there going to be clauses that the people that's doing the documentary that has the clause of editing what they want out of it? And they said, well, I don't know. I'd have checked it. I said, well, if it is, I don't want nothing to do with it. I said, I want the truth out there. I want the whole truth out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you, Jason. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, we have another show coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I got to get the studio together for this special guest that's coming on. Don't forget the show at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, thank you guys both. Just keep in mind that was a condensed version. I welcome anybody to contact me. Any questions that they have, let's discuss it. I'm open all the time.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Tim,
Thank you.
let's get this rock and rolling. Chris, thank you. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
I'll call you soon.
Around the world, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you on the next show. See you shortly, everybody. Godspeed.
Bye, everybody.
Guys, have a good one.